give me, I'm almost set.
Wonderful.
What are you reading from, Don?
I'm still kind of toying around with that a little bit. I
Last
always am
minute.
like last minute with to decide what I want to read. Yeah, because I don't know. I'm going to read a few poems
Yeah.
and maybe one, like a novel starter or an excerpt from an old novel that was never published.
Cool.
Cool.
I
I'm
think
glad you're reading. I've loved the stuff you've posted online.
Thanks. Thanks.
awesome. All right. Well, I wanna start by welcoming everybody to BunkerLit for our reading tonight with Don. We're really thrilled to have him here. My friend Brendan is going to kick it off and introduce him, but I just wanted to take a minute to welcome you all. If you're unfamiliar with Zoom, on the bottom of your screen to the left there's a little mute mic button, and we ask that you just hit that for the reading so that if you get up or jostle or sneeze it doesn't kind of cut off the feed, and that'll just ensure sort of a smooth reading for our writer. And also, if you're new to BunkerLit, we do these readings every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And the idea is just to sort of do a quick little infusion of art and literary community, kind of coming together despite the pandemic and the chaos that is sort of our present, to share in writing and literature and a little bit of art. So I'll hand it over to Brendan to do our introduction. After the reading, we'll have a brief Q&A. So if you've got questions at that point, by all means, unmute your mic. You can also type your questions. There's a little chat feature at the bottom, and we'd be happy to hear from you.
Cool. Well, I emailed Don for a little bio info because his website is a little bit sparse on it. And he informed me that he is in a government protective custody. And this is the reason he's maintaining a very low profile. So I'll start off with that as far as his bio. This is what we do know about him. He grew up along the Kuskokwim River in Southwest Alaska. He graduated from high school in Bethel, and he taught English there for several years. And now he is a professor and chair of the writing department at University of Alaska, Anchorage. He has, count them, 1 wife, 2 kids, 2 dogs, and 2 ravens that nest where he lives, which is up on a hill just outside Anchorage. He writes of the earth, the environment. He's a professor, he's a poet, he's a blogger. He's a screenwriter. He won the 2017 Alaska Literary Prize. He got a Rasmussen Grant Individual Project Award. He was on the 2013 Washington Post Notable List. He's an awesome drinking buddy and deeply in favor of a new virus that will spread across the earth, causing people to read a lot. So, Don Rearden.
Oh man, thank you. Thanks for that introduction, Brendan. I really appreciate it. It's fun to be introduced by, like I consider myself kind of a tough guy writer, but maybe, like I could take a hit and maybe give one and then I'd run. But somebody that could handle themselves in a ring like you is great to have on your side. Author of an awesome novel, Alaskan Laundry. So make sure you check out Brandon's work too. So I'm going to just share a few short things with you tonight. It's really fun to be here with BunkerLit. Really excited to do my first ever reading online. I haven't done this. Only ever read my work in Alaska and once in Canada, which I think counts as half. No, just kidding. I love Canada. I would never have even gotten my first work published if it wasn't for Canada. I thought I'd start because so many of us have been spending so much time on social media. I thought I would share some of my poems related to that. They're fitting, I think. My wife told me that I needed to keep it positive and fun, and so I'm done. I have nothing else to say. I'm just kidding. So I'm going to start with a series of poems, and the first one is called "Death by Social Media." You should have seen her Facebook when she found out her Instagram had died. Her world began to tumble. The beat of her heart reduced to a twitter, just a flicker. She couldn't Pinterest the source of her pain. A dark sound cloud followed. She no longer felt linked in, didn't write in her live journal. The Netflix of her life reduced to cobwebs. Without a Friendster, she found herself Snapchat. She found only the WordPress to write, "My life is over. There's no one to Yelp." Then she wrapped a life knot around her Bebo and jumped into MySpace. That's where you would laugh and applaud. Just kidding. Okay, ready? This is a Death by Social Media 2.0. They get better each time, or worse, however it works for you. So Death by Social Media 2.0. He didn't like how her Facebook turned, her status Twittered, and in an Instagram, she was with another Yahoo and Hotmail, walking dead into a house of cards. His life flock was over. He would never trend again. His only Pinterest, setting the match to Tinder, change his status to Explorer, and set his selfie on Firefox and Tumblr off the Caring Bridge. So these are all just like mostly a bunch of really horrible internet puns, which I will continue with. Death by Social Media 3.0. He needed an update. He'd watched his prime expire. All the good reads were no longer Tinder for his Kindle Fire. Pandora was open. He didn't have the emoticon to kickstart his life. He shared no words with friends, not even a PayPal. All sense of eHarmony was gone. Not even Shazam or Alibaba could save what was left of his Google Earth. All right, so there's a couple of goofy poems for you. Let's save that one and go to, so how's my audience doing today? All right, good. We got a lot of cool people here. Thanks for everybody for joining in. I think what I'll do now is I'll share so I have this novel that I wrote a long time ago that has only been published in France, and it's about a village moving because of climate change. And I've just never had a chance to publish it here in the US for whatever possible reasons that might be. And there are villages now that are having to move. Like this summer, the village of Newtalk is packing up and moving. And so this story, I wrote this many years ago, and it was trying to capture the idea of what would that be like for an entire village to have to pack up and leave where the place they've known forever. And so I have a whole bunch of characters, and their stories all kind of come together and converge. And so each one of them starts with a separate incident sort of happening, and then all those incidents collide as they're going to have to pack up and leave. And so I have this first character start out. It's a fictional village with some quasi-real characters that I've built in. So this will just be the first scene from that's setting it up. And this book was called Moving Salmon Bay, and I can't even tell you what it was called in France because I can't read French. The first chapter is called The Jojo Bird. Jojo raced toward the station. The big white block letters K-U-Y-K on the side of the storm-weathered blue building were nearly obscured by the chest-high tall grass in front. He didn't see Junior reaching for his butcher bird. However, he could hear Augie's plane overhead, and he was far too busy wondering if he shouldn't take the call letters down himself, maybe put them in the wall of his bedroom, if he would even get his own bedroom in the new village. In his mind, he could already see himself lying back on his bed, staring at the block letters covering an entire wall. He worried he might waste away like that, just slowly winnowing away beneath the old radio call sign letters until he became nothing but a pile of skin and bones. He didn't know if the funding would come through to build a new transmitting tower or a new station. And those big block letters would just be more than a radio call sign. They would be pieces of history. They would stand for something that had been positive and powerful in the village of Salmon Bay. And more than that, those 4 letters symbolized everything Jojo knew. Without the radio, he would have no voice. He would have no way to share with the people the perfect song for the perfect occasion. There would be no way to he wouldn't be there to congratulate or give condolences. They wouldn't have him and he wouldn't have them. He would be nothing. He would be dead air. As he wondered just how they would pry the letters from the building and if anyone would even care, his front tire hit a deep gap between the two boards on the walkway. The rubber treads rolled forward and at the same time worked their way down between the tightening crack until the rubber pinched fast and the aluminum wheels stopped cold. Naturally, his momentum continued forward and up. His butt lifted off the seat, his hands let go of the handlebars. He was airborne. 1 second, lost in imagination and worry, he saw a sad corpse on a bed staring up at 4 white plywood letters tacked to a bedroom wall, and the next, Jojo could fly. The bike's back wheel came up over the front. His hulking body sailed forward over the bike, over the handlebars, over the tundra. The world slowed. He imagined God at the world's radio controls, his giant hands slowing the record player of life, 78, 45, 33, to a slow and unintelligible speed. He could see the beads of morning dew on the boardwalk as the earth rolled beneath him. He saw the origin of the flight, the root of the wreck, the front tire pinched fast between the boards. He saw this and more. A crunched can of Coca-Cola tossed to the side of the walk, and at that moment knew who had thrown the can, Ray. Then a corn nut wrapper discarded by Junior, Ed's empty can of Copenhagen, Trouble's cigarette butt, Bonika's mud-covered shoe. He turned his attention to where he would land, a T in the boardwalk just ahead, right to the station, left to the runway Augie had just departed from, straight ahead, a small lake, but not just any lake, the lake. All right, that's just one of the characters' stories from Moving Salmon Bay. The lake that guy's about to go fall into and fly into is the Honey Bucket Lake. So if you are Alaskan, did I lose everybody? Oh no. A few of our Alaskan friends would know what the Honey Bucket Lake is. I think I'll read, if you're cool with it, maybe I'll read one more poem and then we can take some questions.
Do it. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. I think this would be a good one to maybe end with and I can take some questions. This is a new poem. I wrote a poem a day for April. I kind of do that every year. I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years now. So this is a poem called This I Miss. My daughter calls it the sickness, and I am sad for her not getting to play with friends, but it doesn't faze her. She says she misses Taco King and Joe's cats. Our friends miss going to movies, sitting in a restaurant, going up to a bar, sporting events, live music, bookstores and birthdays, pools and playgrounds, cookouts and camping. What do I miss? Not worrying about the awkward space between us, breakfast at a cafe, and hugs. So hugs to all of you for joining. Thanks for hanging out to read a little bit tonight. I'd take a few questions if you have any.
Yeah, that was fantastic, Don. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for having me on.
It was awesome, Don. I love that mix of work. It was great.
I spent way too much time stressing about it and then just ended up picking whatever I could come up with.
I think
what's up? I'm sorry, go on, Amy.
I was just going to say, I think we're a pretty supportive bunch. I think we're all just happy to really come together and listen. So I would echo that. I thought it was a really great assortment.
Thank you. It's strange to have, and now I kind of understand, like I've been watching like the late night shows and watch Colbert and he delivers his jokes and there's no one to laugh at him except whoever, you you don't have that audience. And so it is weird reading with no reaction. You can't feed off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of talking into the abyss a little bit. But yeah, folks are welcome to post questions in the comment area or just shoot. And maybe I could just start it off. Can you just talk a little bit about the novel that you're working on, Don?
Oh man, this novel I've been working on forever. I was going to read a poem kind of based on that. There's this Arctic whaling novel that I've been playing with, but I keep moving on to other projects, and I need to just finish it already. It's the idea essentially is to follow one whale who could be more than 200 years old. The bowhead whales they're discovering they'll when they harvest a bowhead whale in Utqiagvik, or one of the villages that still whale, they could find artifacts in them, harpoon tips that could be from the New Bedford and Nantucket fleets, from like 150 years ago, 100 years ago, to ancient fossilized ivory tips. So they know that these whales are very old. And so I'm kind of playing with the idea of how one whale would have seen kind of the dawn of early man in Alaska till now, from kind of the Stone Age tool implementation to heavy duty industrial corporate whaling, the Nantucket, New Bedford whaling, until today, where they're kind of returned back to a traditional whaling. And so, yeah, that's sort of the story I've been playing with for way too long. This will be when you hear people talk about the novel they've been working on for 10 years, like this has become that one for me. Whether I ever even finish it, who knows? I just like talking about it, I guess. All my other projects kind of pull me aside, and I work on nonfiction stuff with buddies or screenplays and never get done with that. Any other questions?
Sounds awesome.
There's a question from Jay. I don't have a white whale, Jay. If you know where I can find one, though, I'll join you looking for it.
Don, a lot of my questions lately, I think for our authors have to do, especially, I just got a warning that my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully you can hear me.
I hear you.
Okay, a lot of my questions lately have to do with artists who dabble in more than one genre. And so I was curious if you could talk a little bit, when you have an idea, does it immediately present itself to you as this is the form or the genre that I want to pursue? Like, how do you decide, what vessel or what container to put your ideas in?
Oh man, that's a really good question. There's definitely been a few times where I start a project in one form and then decide it needed to be something else. Or like I have this whaling novel and I've been trying to kind of get the start of it for years now. And then I'll write a poem about a piece of it. Or I'll think like this, at some point I might get lazy and say this would make a better screenplay. And then I'll write the screenplay because it's way easier for me to do that. And really it's kind of partitioning the part of my brain to decide what mode do I want to write in or work in. Or am I brave enough at the time to work from, I guess. That's part of it too.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
I asked everybody to write on the side where they're all coming in from, which is kind of cool to see that. Philly and Sitka, awesome. Ohio, Homer, cool. Cool.
Well, I heard you. I wanted to ask. I heard you a little bit on the last Insight talking about your great novel that you wrote about a pandemic. Can you say something about having written a novel that deals with a pandemic? What is it like to be living in one?
Oh man, that's a really good question. That was actually, I had pondered sharing a bit of that from the Raven's Gift until my wife said no one wants to hear anything about pandemic stuff.
Well,
I had the page all picked out.
I love dystopian novels, but I didn't expect us to be living in, nonstop dystopia. But I'd love to hear what you say.
Well, yeah, I had thought about sharing a little bit of that, and I was totally ready to, and I had a little spiel worked up about to talk about that. So thank you for asking that, because it allows me to kind of digress to what I wanted to say about that anyway. It's hyper surreal for me right now to be kind of living in something that I imagined. I imagined a much darker version of it, but there's still time. I hope it doesn't come to fruition. My biggest concern, even to this day, is what will happen in rural Alaska if this virus gets out there. You know, we've had a couple like isolated cases and they have to stay isolated. If they don't, it's going to be devastating. And so that to me is like far scarier than kind of my own personal health situation or anything like that. It's just the idea of all those people I care about in a really scary situation when they don't have running water. You know, like you can tell people to wash their hands all you want. Well, when you don't have running water in your house, that's a whole different beast. But at the same time, I have great hope, because the one thing about a place like Alaska and where we're at here is the pandemics that already hit here and devastated communities. The people here are the survivors of those. The traditional people, the indigenous peoples of Alaska survived those already, and so there's still the knowledge of how to live and how to endure and how to cope through some of that. And so I find hope in that myself, and try not to think too much about the darkness. A lot of this early on had me really wishing I hadn't written The Raven's Gift. I said that in a couple interviews, and it was because I felt bad about, I knew so many people in Alaska had read it, and I only, because they were contacting me saying, is this what you imagine? What do you think is going to happen? And all of this stuff. And so I felt bad that they would have that I only added to their fear and anxiety about the situation. So I felt guilty about that a little bit. But at the same time, it's been kind of interesting, because there was a few instances where people contacted me and said they had made decisions. They were using good science. There were leaders in communities making decisions, but they had also read the book, and so that they were looking for positive ways through this. One instance, there was an event that was happening, and I wrote the person who was heading it up, and I was like, I hope you will reconsider having this event, like postpone it, because I just imagined it, the devastation that a large gathering like that could have happened. And he wrote me back, and it was just, all he said was, dude, I read your book, LOL. So it was like, he had already set up that it was canceled. The event was getting canceled as I was writing that. So that was funny. So that was a long-winded answer to that question, but thanks. Yeah, I really hope that people can use this. The piece that I was going to share was really about, yes, there's the devastation that we're having right now, and it's still going to continue for a while, but really it's about like finding the hope and using this time to reconnect with family, with your creativity, and with the beauty that's there. That's easy for me to say, because I live in Alaska and I can step outside, I can look out my window right now and it's gorgeous, and I can go out there safely, where some of you are in buildings in cities, and you're confined and trapped, and that's just scary and horrible, and man, my heart goes out to you. But it's still, I think you can escape through literature, and that's why it's really cool that you guys have set this up. And so I really, really appreciate that, Amy and Brendan, for getting us going. And yeah, it's cool to be able to share with so many people from all over the place. Man, how cool. We got people all over chiming in. Any other questions?
Are you going to share a little Raven's Gift? And that was a great response. That was a wonderful response.
I don't know. Do you want me to share a little Raven's Gift? I already went too long. They said 10-minute reading. I don't know. Maybe I won't share any Raven's Gift. I'll follow my wife's advice. It's not all totally dark. There is some positive stuff in there.
It is one of my favorite Alaska books. I mean, anybody who hasn't read it, I would really encourage you to read it. It's one of the books that I go back to and read again. And there are certain sections that are so redemptive and, like you were saying, Don, so hopeful. And I can't help think, but I mean, you having done the work to imagine, you know, that world might have made, you know, some of this present moment easier, you know, for folks to swallow. Just kind of seeing that story being put into words. That seems like such a critical role for, you know, a writer or an artist to play at this moment.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, these are interesting times we live in, but I think the role of writers right now is I mean, hopefully it makes people appreciate art a little bit more, but also it gives us it kind of increases the importance of what we're doing in terms of sharing, communicating, helping people get through this time, you know, whether it's through humor or heartfelt messages or just even scaring them possibly, I guess, like Stephen King style, or maybe some of the scary stuff I've written. there's a reason, you know, it helps us feel alive and helps us remember what's important in life. And like you guys, everybody that's joined us today, man, I really appreciate it. It's super cool to see people from all over across the country chiming in and joining us. And I'm grateful for you, Amy and Brennan, for hosting this.
It's our pleasure, Don. It's really wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's been, I think this is our 5th week, and it's been so amazing to see people come from sort of all over and tune in. So thank you for joining us. Maybe we have time for one more question, if we have one more question before we close on out.
Can one person just say that this has been really great? It's not really a question, but thank you very much for doing this. So, yep, checking back out, but this is, yeah, what a treat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, thanks so much. And thanks guys for, you know, taking time out of your day to join us, and thanks Don for taking the time to read. And yeah, I hope you guys all join us next week, same time, same place, same meeting spot and everything. And look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you, Don, for joining us.
Cool. Thank you. You guys take care. Stay safe, sane, and sanitized.
All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.